What's going on, everybody? SJC, and today's video will be a discussion on Luffy versus Katakuri. Now, ever since the last chapter was released, everybody is going crazy over this fight, and it's understandable. This is Luffy 1v1 a Yonko commander. Let me repeat that. This is Luffy versus a Yonko commander. It looks like it's going to be a deadlock. There's no escape, as we know right now. There is no escape, and Luffy is dead serious. I keep telling people, when you have a panel where Luffy is staring down and Katakuri is staring down, that means that, you know, it's automatically chapter of the year, because when these two have the evil glares at each other, or like they're ready to throw the hands, that just means that, you know, it's about to get hectic. And honestly, I want to look at evidence that we have in the story and pretty much give my predictions on what's going to happen in this fight. Now, before I go ahead and list some of these fights, I just want to talk about some popular theories that I'm interested in. There's, of course, the most popular one that we're going to see Gear 5th potentially. Some people say we're going to see Awakening. There was one theory where after the battle, Luffy would actually get to Wano and catch up with the Straw Hats by finding a mirror, or potentially finding some type of mirror that Katakuri may use or something to get out, just in case there's a backup. He is a commander. They probably thought about this, but I thought that was interesting. I forgot who commented it, but it was on one of my videos. If you're watching the video, man, thanks for leaving that comment, because that was an interesting theory. I figured I'd shout it out. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about some of these battles. Now, the first fight I want to talk about is going way back all the way to Water 7 and his lobby. Luffy versus Bruno, one of the greatest battles in my opinion, just because of how the ending was so mysterious, with Luffy thinking, oh, you're still up, huh? That panel was so amazing when the first time I read it. But I want to talk about the ability that was introduced in that fight, Gear 2nd. Gear 2nd came out of nowhere. We saw Luffy take the pose. We saw Luffy having the steam raise off his body and stuff like that. His muscles condensed and his speed increased. He pretty much was inspired by the abilities that the CP9 were displaying, and that led to him developing his own technique. Now, I want to talk. Now, we know Gear 3rd was pretty much hyped up, but I want to talk about that more with Luffy versus Lucci. We saw Luffy versus Lucci, or we saw Luffy being pushed to his edge. But regardless, Luffy still was able to come out on top. And honestly, with Gear 3rd, we saw the devastating ability that Luffy possessed with that form, setting Lucci flying. I do this every time in the videos. I always say Luffy, and when I mean Lucci, because they sound familiar. But you know, we saw Gear 3rd sending Lucci flying to the other Admiral boat, or Admiral ship, and we saw how devastating, like, Luffy was able to destroy the Marine's wall and stuff like that. It was pretty good. It was a cool form. Honestly, even with Luffy combining Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd against Gecko Moria, that's another battle I want to bring up. Luffy has come out of nowhere with these abilities, and honestly, I feel like that Oda has written these fights to stand out, to make a better flow, because if we have these abilities just come out of nowhere, it feels out of place. It just feels like whenever Luffy's pushed to his limits, he's just gonna pull out a new form every time. The next fight, Luffy versus Horty Jones in Fishman Island, the infamous ability where we saw Luffy introduce Red Hawk. Yo, the will of Ace was inherited when we saw Luffy use this ability. Honestly, the most confusing question we have is, how did Luffy create fire underwater? That was the coolest thing I ever saw, and this honestly ties in with my little theory towards the end. But there's one more fight that I have to bring up: Luffy versus Doflamingo, Gear 4th. Pretty much this is Luffy's strongest form that we know right now. Now, we all know about the destructive capability of Gear 4th and how it was able to go against Doflamingo's Awakening. In the anime, we say it time and time again, in the anime it was pretty much hyped up to be more of a clash, something similar to Luffy versus Caesar, but in the manga it was pretty much just the ease. It was a breeze for Luffy to take out those strings and stuff like that. But honestly, the thing about Gear 4th, I feel like Oda has planned it perfectly. Luffy has used Gear 4th in fights pretty much against people who actually need to be hit with it, like Cracker, Big Mom, and we can assume it's going to be used against Katakuri. But what I like about Oda and his writing style with Gear 4th is that he's had Luffy use it in situations where normally, after we saw how the drawbacks were, I think it was 10 minutes he couldn't use Haki. I feel like that I thought Luffy would be drained after using Gear 4th just once, but we've seen him use it time and time again. Honestly, Luffy versus Cracker, I feel like that's the most important out of the times we've seen it, because that really got Luffy used to the drawbacks and stuff like that. With every time, I feel like every time Luffy uses Gear 4th, you're just naturally going to get used to it. Eventually it'll get perfected, something like he did with Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd. He perfected them over the time skip. So I feel like with Luffy and his ability to perfect his abilities to the point where he could evolve even more, I feel like this is going to be the fight where we get a new ability from Luffy. Now, I brought up the theories earlier about awakening and Gear 5th, stuff like that, but honestly, I'm starting to think differently. I feel like we're going to see a new variant of Haki with Luffy. Now, the reason I bring this up is because we've seen Gear 2nd, we've seen Gear 3rd, and we've seen Gear 4th used, highlighted many times in the story, but we haven't seen something new when it comes to Haki from Luffy. I feel like this is the perfect arc to introduce Luffy's Haki ability. Otherwise, why would Luffy lock himself in the realm with Katakuri? Why would Luffy leave himself in there if all he had was Gear 2nd, Gear 3rd, Red Hawk, and Gear 4th? Now, honestly, like, this is something that's very spooky when I'm just thinking about it, because I know Oda is going to throw the hugest curveball at us, and all our ankles are going to be broken, let's be honest. Now, I feel like that we may see something with Luffy. I don't believe it's going to be observation Haki. We don't really see Luffy using it that much, only when, you know, he's fighting characters with projectiles and stuff like that, or he's trying to find his crew or looking for a specific target in a crowd, stuff like that. Now, me personally, I would love to see a new variant of Red Hawk, or not even just a variant of Red Hawk. Even then, the mystery behind Red Hawk is, how did Luffy create fire underwater? Now, a lot of people have made a theory about elemental Haki, so I feel like that may come into play in this fight. I'm not saying it's going to be elemental Haki, but I feel like Luffy's going to have some sort of plan. I would love to see a variant of Conqueror's Haki. I've brought that up in another video. If you want to check it out, it's Strongest Person Alive, I believe. But I feel like that we're going to see some new variant of Haki. I want to see Luffy have some new ability that isn't a gear, that isn't an awakening, something that we've been hyped up and thinking to see in the future, or all this point until now. I feel like that it's going to be something that is just going to completely blow us away. I feel like that this fight was specifically highlighted to hype us up. I mean, Luffy said he promises he's gonna be there at Wano, he's gonna recruit or get back with the Straw Hats and stuff like that. So I feel like Luffy definitely has a plan, and I feel like that since he has clashed with Katakuri before, he wouldn't rush in without absolutely knowing he'll come out on top. So I feel like this is going to be one of the most amazing fights in One Piece. A lot of people have said it's going to surpass Luffy versus Lucci. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. Shows Up Captain, and I'll see you guys in the next video.